Hi, I'm Dan Johnson. We are here at Sebring Expo 2013. We are on a mission to go around and look at a number of light sport aircraft which we know have been used in a flight school environment and have accumulated a number of hours on them, to dispel the notion that these aircraft won't hold up in a training environment because we know better. We've seen some other broadcasts and writing to the effect that that's not true, that you have to be delicate with these airplanes, and they may be neat, but they need kid glove treatment, and that's just not the case. We're talking with John McBean of Kitfox Aircraft, a proprietor of a brand that almost everybody in America has to know. If not, you've been living off planet for a while. And you've got a couple of interesting things for us. Let's talk about that real quick first. Rotax 912IS. You're an American manufacturer. You get the first IS installed American manufactured airplane on the market, I believe.
I believe that's correct. We're actually flew it down here from Idaho. We've got about 25 hours on the engine now. It's been running flawlessly. It's remarkably smooth and fuel efficient. I mean, we're burning at high RPM cruise, and I mean, you know the Rotax, 5,500 RPM continuous, keeping up with the 914 powered Kitfox that's here. And I was just under 4 gallons an hour.
Is that right? At those high RPM?
At those high RPM cruises. So
wow,
it's pretty remarkable. I've been real pleased with the engine.
So they said it was going to be better fuel economy, and you can stand behind that and go,
absolutely.
Yes,
my experience is absolutely, and we've got thousands of hours behind the ULS.
Right, I know you got a lot of time on these airplanes. Speaking of a lot of time on airplanes, congratulations on that installation.
Thank you.
And your successful flight down here. That's how many miles was that, by the way?
2,385 miles.
One of the longest distance flights here, I'm guessing.
I think so, yeah, and that's only one way. We still have to go home.
Darn it, you got to fly back.
Got to fly back. Yep.
Well,
he's probably going to the Bahamas in the meantime, though, so don't feel too sorry.
Well, you know, we did that last year. We decided to play hooky this year, but we are going to make a stop in New Orleans. So.
There you go. You get pretty close to the water anyway. So we talked about airplanes with a little more time on them, and you've got literally your fleet has got I don't know how many hours if you've got a number, but we want to focus on ones that have been used in a flight training environment. We talked to Paul Letterbrand, I believe is how you say his last name, and he is one who's plugged one into flight training, does it pretty much day in and day out.
Yes.
And how many hours has he got on that airplane now?
Well, Stick and Rudder Aviation, which is Paul Letterbrand out of Boise, Idaho, is the factory endorsed flight school for us. And his first airplane had over 1,700 hours in just 2 years' time in a flight training environment in the mountains of Idaho. So not only on the terrain or the normal hard pavement, but actually doing flight training into short strips in the backcountry in the mountains.
1,700 hours in 2 years.
In 2 years.
Repeating.
Yep.
That's a lot of flying per year, and with students, not with the best pilot in the world doing it, but with people.
So you made a
learning how to
pile of money out of him in parts then?
Well, actually, no, we didn't. The Grove landing gear and the Grove wheels and brakes have held up fabulous, along with our airplane. The airplane looked like it was off the showroom. People would not believe it had the amount of time on it. He has since sold that airplane, and it is in Vermont in another flight school being operated currently.
So it's going to keep on being a flight school airplane.
Absolutely, and the airplane looked like brand new. He's got a new airplane now, just took delivery of it at Christmas time, and that's a 914 powered light sport Kitfox that's operating in the back
you're
country.
up there in high country, or higher country anyway, so a little extra boost out of that engine is going to be a good thing.
Well, his opinion was it extends his day, because now he can actually get to the backcountry faster, do more landings, and fly longer into the day when the density altitudes start to increase without having the restrictions from the naturally aspirated engine.
Beautiful. Well, that's good thinking. So I know he's a great resource for you. I've got some stuff on my website about him. Very impressed. And I got to say that this John's airplane at AOPA last fall out in Palm Springs was a poster child for this video that we're doing, because I came by and looked at this. It looked like a brand new airplane. It did not look at all like an airplane with 1,700 hours on it. I only knew because you had a sign underneath his ear that said so.
And over 5,000 landings. And those were actually recorded landings, so it's not just the hours.
Landings.
Yep, it was in a training
the number
environment.
of times you hit the ground has got a lot to do with it there. So
and hopefully they were equal number of takeoffs too. So.
Must have been pretty similar. I went around the corner looking at some of the heavier iron that they had on display there, some beautiful and expensive aircraft, and a lot of the folks there were saying, gee, you're with the light sport group, those are some really neat little airplanes. Love to have one for fooling around myself, but you know, they can't hold up in a flight school environment. And I would just cringe and go, you got to go around the corner. You were just around the corner where I'm talking about, and look at this Kitfox there. It's beautiful, and I would tell them the story.
Sure.
And I hope they did, because it's a great story.
That's probably your
So we've pretty well identified that the operational costs, fuel, maintenance, oil, things of that nature that you go through just operating an airplane day in and day out in a flight school environment is excellent on this airplane and with these engines. But there's also the acquisition cost, what it takes to buy an airplane, and then what you can sell it for later on, sometimes called residual value. And some people go out and say, well, I can buy a Cessna 150 for $20-some thousand and I can operate it. It's a lot cheaper if I do that. Well, there sounds like a valid argument on the face of it, but that's before you consider resale. So Paul's airplane, you said, just sold. Tell us a little of the facts behind that.
Well, the person that purchased the aircraft was also starting a flight school in Vermont. And he was very interested in the Kitfox for that application up there, doing tailwheel training in the mountains in Vermont. Same kind of scenario that Paul was doing. When Paul decided to buy his new airplane and he put that one up on the market, it was all word of mouth. There wasn't a list or pricing like that out there. And Paul actually sold that for the same price he paid for it, with 1,700 hours on it, almost, basically 2.5 years after he purchased it. Ironically enough, the acquisition of that at the time was less than the acquisition of it is today. So the purchase price today is higher, but it's still sold for about the same value.
So he came and bought a brand new airplane from him, really out nothing.
That's correct.
And he got to earn 1,700 hours worth of flight instruction out of the airplane. So this was a viable business proposition for him.
Yes, and he actually has a third airplane on order now that's scheduled for delivery in the late spring.
Excellent.
And right now that's going to be IS powered.
So let's talk just briefly about any airplane in that environment is going to take some maintenance, of course. You got to do some things to it. But that's true no matter what the airplane is, whether it's light sport or GA or something else. But the maintenance can be done by someone with a lesser degree than a A&P need. Can be done by the A&P, but not required.
That's correct.
How about a little bit more about that?
Well, our maintenance manual actually specifies that, as all the maintenance manuals are supposed to. Depending on the level of the activity, there's different functions within the maintenance manual that a LSRM could actually do, which is the Light Sport Repairman certificate, as you know, or an A&P can do that. There's also owner-supplied things that are in the manual that the owner can do.
With a little bit of training, they can even do their own annual.
Absolutely. And we do that actually at the factory for a person that actually has one of our LSAs. Many of them have brought them back to the factory for us to actually walk them through the procedure so they get familiar with it, watching us do it and going over it for the first time. So it's worked out really well.
I'll bet you that makes them feel real good. We're talking with John McBean of Kitfox Aircraft, and we'd like you to give us some information. We didn't dwell too much on the airplane itself, but we know some of our viewers watching this on their computer or TV or wherever they're projecting this to want to know how to get more information if they want to buy an airplane from you. Give us a web address and we'll put it up on the screen.
Absolutely. You can reach Kitfox Aircraft at 208-337-5111 or visit our website, www.kitfoxaircraft.com.
There you go. I've got information on the airplane that we talked about here, on John's airplanes. I've flown them, got a lot of information available. That's on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com. We're going to go around and look at some more light sport aircraft used in a flight training environment and loving it.